being in the nature, swimming and running, of course, but doing that with someone, that to me was very special.
Welcome to the Low Tide Boys, a swimrun podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this is episode 125 of the show.
Buck and a quarter.
We're stoked to have Gilles LaFleuriel, founder of TSR Swimrun, on the show this week. Gilles does an amazing job calculating the Salamander Rankings. You might have heard of that. He also creates a lot of super niche swimrun content, and as purveyors of super niche content ourselves, Gilles is a kindred spirit, and we know that you're going to enjoy the conversation we're going to share with you later on. But first,
training update. Super stoked. We have Ödyssey's Casco Bay race coming up just 7 weeks away. We've been putting in the work in the pool, on the track, on the trails. You might be thinking, well, you're missing some swimruns in there, Low Tide Boys. Don't you worry. We're going to get some swimrun practices in here in the next few weeks. But right now we're just working on dialing those gears in on land and sea and or chlorinated pool.
Yeah. Sometimes more chlorine.
The new pool we have is the chlorine situation's much different there. I've noticed
It's better.
Yeah.
It's better.
The pool all around is a little bit nicer.
It's better.
It's a little better. Nothing against Petaluma Swim Center. But now on to Shoutouts and Feats of Endurance combo event this week. Really excited for this one.
Yeah, it's a special combo. Very special shout-out / Feats of Endurance Award to our friend Sarah Fergot. A few weekends ago, she tackled the Miwok 100. If you don't know what we're talking about, It's a brutal 100K trail run with almost 12,000 feet of climbing in the Marin Headlands, A.K.A. Chipper, my local stomping grounds. And she finished the race with just a few minutes to spare before the cutoff time, which was 15 hours and 30 minutes. And she finished in 15 hours and 27 minutes or something like that. This race is notorious for its tough cutoffs times. And Sarah really showed her mettle to get it done under the wire. Major kudos, friend.
Nice job, Sarah.
Now it's time to focus on swimrun, though.
Yeah, dial that run back, get the swim volume going
That's
again.
What I'm talking
you got Casco Bay and checks notes 7 weeks away. You got to train up, Sarah.
Sarah's in her Strava club. You don't know what we're talking about? You don't know about Strava? Strava.com. Learn all about it. There's a club section, and in that section, there's the Low Tide Boys, so you can join other swimrunners from around the world as they train, be super supportive, let the kudos, give kudos, and have kudos be rained down upon thee.
Join the 419 members at the time of recording.
Wow. Dude, do you remember, like, way back when we were like, oh, we got
30 people in here. This is so great.
Stoked. Dude, I'm just as stoked.
It's insane.
I'm just as stoked.
And love seeing everybody's stuff in there.
Yeah.
Massive feats of endurance up and down.
Yeah, and all
the
like
leaderboard.
Let's just throw it in right now. Honorary feats of endurance. Everyone who raced Uta. We're going to talk about it in a minute.
Yes.
That was a race.
It was the thing. So let's kick it right over to the news desk for this week in Swimrun. Well, I rarely get the mic on this one, but welcome to the LTB news desk here. Swimrun season has officially kicked off in Sweden with A.K.A. Swimrun Ute taking place over the weekend. The conditions were classic with a, dare we say, chilly air temperature and just this frosty water temps. I saw reports of 7-8 degrees C.
Yeah.
That's in the upper 40s.
Yeah. Cold.
That's freezing. Not literally, figuratively freezing. So the new sprint and world distance courses looked hard / fun, and the podiums were stacked with our friends and former guests of the show, which is always so great to see. Yeah. I'm like, hey, I know that person. Oh, he's so cool. I'm glad that he won. So huge congrats from the Low Tide Boys to everybody that raced A.K.A. Ute this weekend.
Looked awesome.
It looked amazing and chilly, but
still FOMO.
Still FOMO.
I mean, there was some fear in there for sure. It's like, oh man,
capital F.
Like that would have sucked, but it's still like it would have been awesome.
Yeah. Fear of missing out and also fear of participating. So whatever acronym that one makes up. Now let's take it over to the UK to Mad Hatter Sports. If you may have remembered, we just chatted with John a few weeks ago for the Hokey Cokey Swimrun. Fun was had by all in the looks of the photos, and congrats to all of our friends and listeners that raced their first swimrun at the event. We have a very, very special bonus shout out to Emily from the Precision Fuel and Hydration team, as well as Tim Wood on racing your first swim runs.
Yeah.
So kudos to you. And I know the PFH team as sort of a
Team
like
building.
a team building
Yeah.
or an offsite situation. Andy and the team all did swim runs.
Yeah.
And I think Andy got in second place and someone else from PFH got in first for the team. So good job, all the
person's now
precision.
fired.
Yeah, they're on the unemployment line this morning. You can't beat the boss. So congrats, especially to Emily and everyone else on the PFH team. Tim, go as well to you. If you want to learn more about Mad Hatter Sports and check out their other swim runs and our recent interview with the race director, John Yellen, that link is in the show notes. Well, that's it for this week. Feel free to reach out to us for anything that you'd like us to mention on the show. Now on to updates.
I guess I'll just take this one since we're
swapping.
That's what happens when we break the formula. Anyway, looking for some casual gear to show off your low tide pride? Make sure you head over to our online store for hats, shirts, hoodies, other stuff. Like you need a patch for something, you trip, got a hole in
you
your
need a
jeans.
beanie?
Need a beanie, got beanies. As our friend and co-founder of ARC Sports, Christopher Sundberg, recently posted about our swag. This is the gourmet shit of swim and apparel.
I mean, we should put that on the site.
I think he knows what he's talking about.
He knows something. We should put that on the site.
Yeah.
This is some gourmet shit.
Some gourmet shit. If you want to support us and show off your low tide pride on podiums all over the world, check out our store. Link is in our show notes. Should we get to this interview?
Let's do it. It was so great to finally connect with Gilles. We've been following the TSR Swimrun account since we launched our own meme account and podcast here. You probably may have heard about it. And it's definitely a game recognizes game situation here. He's doing his part in leaning into the skills that he has to help grow the sport that we all love. And it was great to hear from him and how he found Swimrun, what led him to start his labor of love, and TSR Swimrun. We covered a lot of ground in this interview. It was actually one of our longer ones that we've had in a bit. And we definitely think that you will enjoy it as much as we did.
Yeah, it was a good one. It was cool. I mean, I definitely felt like it was a kindred spirit situation.
Yes.
Like he was like, hey, I see you.
It was like we were all
doing. Yeah. It was cool. It was cool.
Very relatable personally for me and you. It was like, oh, he kind of came about it the same way. Like he likes swim runs, so he knew to do this crazy mathematical
and we could also commiserate
rankings
on how hard it is.
Yeah. He's like, I have a regular job too. I'm like, we have jobs too. This was great.
It's like, it's so much work, right? No, this was an awesome conversation. And if you go to the TSR Swimrun webpage, they have a link to the entire presentation of this year's TSR, the Salamander Rankings Awards. So you can check that out. Yours truly's on there on a panel.
Yep.
Lars Fananger. You have
Mika.
Man himself. You have Nicholas Ramirez. You have Desiree Anderson and Marika Wagner. It was stacked.
Both raced
Stacked
Uto as well,
They both
or all
raced
three of them
Uta.
did.
Anyone who was
I guess
around there,
everyone.
if you were in the area, you're racing Uta, I think.
And you had enough neoprene to wear in the chilliness.
All the neoprene. Anyway, should we just get to this?
Let's do it. Let's Sally meander our way over to our conversation. Hey now, with Gilles from TSR Swimrun.
Just renewed your dad card.
Boom. It's a punch card.
All right, so we have the man himself, Gilles LaFleuriel, from TSR fame. If you don't know what that is, that's the Salamander Rankings, which we don't know a lot of what that is. We brought Gilles on to explain it to us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure.
So when this airs, it'll be, I think, like a week or two after the annual TSR awards. So why don't we tell everyone at home who's listening, tell us a little bit about how you started TSR and kind of what was the route for starting the award show?
Sure. The story starts from me actually coming to Sweden back in 2014. I had a glimpse at Swimrun when I was in Belgium before that, and so just watching some videos about Ödyssey, and I was just completely hooked from the first minutes. Maybe I will tell you a bit more about my background, but I have been into endurance for as many years as I could actually run or something like this, and so Swimrun was very attractive to me from the beginning, and so I jumped into it, and I guess I did my first swimrun in 2015, which was already planned from 2014, I guess. So did that with my brother, and then during the next autumn, winter, I was thinking about how to get a bit more involved with the sport, and I realized it was very, very much a sport in the making, and I wanted to be some part of it and contribute to it, do something, which I had never done actually with triathlon in the past, which was my sport for many years. So I was just thinking that, given that it was still a sport in the making, there was a way for me to, get a relatively simple and easy to implement way to rank athletes. And so I put together, an idea which, I discussed with several people, including actually Michael at that time, but also some other guys at World of Swimrun, for instance. And so after having those discussions, I finalized some sort of a sketch of what that would be in terms of which races would be there, and how we would calculate the points, and also how to implement it with an IT system that would be manageable. And again, always with the side that it should be manageable by me, and potentially, I was not including my brother at that time, but maybe someone else that would help me out to do the thing, but not making it too big or too complicated, because I obviously everyone has a life, and unless you are a professional in that sport, I wanted to keep it, again, manageable. And so that's how it started. So that was the winter of, I remember sitting long hours in the winter of 15, 16, trying to compute the ranking of 15. And so putting together, kind of retrieving all the results that I could see on the net in 15, and doing an ex ante kind of ranking, which I managed to do, and which it was a simple one. I didn't include everyone, but I took I don't remember exactly how many I was taking per race, but the top 20 or top 30. And I had 25 races or something. And that, I came up to first kind of, again, after party kind of ranking, and continued with that. And then I think in 15 or 16, sorry, I did everything manually on my Excel file. It was a bit cumbersome. It took a lot of time for that. And I think the main development or the big step up was to partner with my brother, who was an IT specialist, again, between 16 and 17. And we came up with a proper database with some automation, and that made it easier for the future. But that's basically how it started. Very much the idea to contribute to the sport, make it and creating a platform that would help, both the athletes and the race organizers to get a bit more visibility, and that's the main selling point. Whenever I come to anyone who's interested to see how it works, I'm saying, it's whatever you want it to be, right? You can use it to grab some new sponsors, and you say that you're in the top 10. It's an independent ranking, and bring it to your sponsor and shine with it. That's That's one way to look at it. And then for the race organizers is for them, to say we are part of the ranking, the TSR ranking system, which is again an independent ranking system, and we are next to those or other races, and we're trying to attract more participants. So why not use the TSR label or whatever? So that's the main idea, I would say.
I love that genesis of it. It sounds eerily similar to the Low Tide Boys origin story as well. We're stoked on Swimrun. What can we do to kind of help it along? And here we are. You started a bit earlier than we did, but similar, very very similar path. Awesome. Mm-hmm. I see here on your site, yes, you're talking about your independent kind of transparent ranking system, also gender equal and for all swim runs, which is also aligns to things that we're doing. We're trying to make the sport more accessible for everybody. I'd love to hear a little bit about how you kind of take into account equality when you are, I guess for a lack of a better word, or when you're ideating on your algorithm or your ranking algorithm.
Yeah, that was very much from the start. So there are two things here that I wanted to include in the ranking. I mean, for those who don't know, there are two rankings. One is called individual ranking, and it's not because it's actually based on individual races. It's always dual races. But there in this individual ranking, you have people that have been racing with different partners in different races. So you add up their points. And then you have this team ranking, which is just based on the same team, and you have to keep to that team to get to the ranking. But for both rankings, the idea was very much to mix. So in the individual ranking, to have the men and the women on the same ranking, and then on the team ranking to have the three categories all together. And I didn't know what it would become with time. I didn't know whether on the individual ranking, whatever. Even if I had put this equality thing, I wasn't sure that I would get enough women at the top, because there was just an output of the system, of the algorithm. And I'm super stoked by the fact that it's been working very well, and we've seen so many women and mixed teams and women teams trusting the top of those rankings on both sides. And so even this year, I just did just the statistics recently. I think we have 40% of the top 20 on the individual side that are women. And on the team side, it must be a similar number as well. But the way it works more technically is that I attribute the same number of points to the winners of all the categories. So if you're an individual and you win with a man or with a mixed, let's say you're a man yourself and you run either in men or in mixed, you would get the same kind of points for the first team, which means that potentially if you win all the races, you are on top of whomever is coming after that, and that's something I just wanted to implement from the beginning. And I remember discussing with when we had the awards previously that they were asking me, but can't we just do an individual ranking for men and then an individual ranking for women, and then we would separate that? And I was like, no, it's the same kind of point attribution methods for men and women, so they are in the same pot. And if it's a woman that is on top that year, I believe she deserves to be, the queen or whatever. And that has happened a couple of times with Desiree, with Helena Siverson as well in the past. So I'm happy that it works. It works both sides, men and women, and same on the team side. So it could be a mixed, or it could be a women or a men's team that is winning on that specific year.
I love that.
So that's my way to kind of introduce equality, I would say.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's something that, if you've been around the sport even for a little bit, you definitely see that there's such room for growth on the women's side. And I think, highlighting the fact that some of the best athletes in the sport, I'll put myself on the limb. I think Desiree is probably the greatest swim runner of her generation at this point. And, to have her, she deserves all the credit that she's getting at this point for her amazing, skill and results.
I'm curious to hear from you. So obviously this is a labor of love, just like as Chipper mentioned, same thing for us. We're all trying to do what we can to help grow the sport and bring it to light because we both love it so much. But I'd love to hear from you, like, what was it about Swimrun when you first discovered it that you fell in love with that made you kind of go down this road? I mean, for Chipper and me, like, this show's a lot of work. You know, every week we're sort of reminded, like, damn, I can't believe we've been doing this every week for, you know, over 2 years. But I'm curious to hear, so what was the genesis of your love for Swimrun?
Yeah. Well, I think again it dates back from way back then. I mean, so I did triathlon from '91. So I did 12 years of triathlon. Started with the magazine of Triathlete France, with that was reporting the win of Mark Allen over Dave Scott back in '90.
Old school.
And so exactly, and that's how I started the sport. And so I started putting, like, you know, my pink jersey and my, you know, my swimming briefs. And
Nice.
I was 15 at that time, in a small village in the middle of France, and just riding my bike like crazy, and, you know, looking like, you know, a weirdo. And but I fell in love. I was passionate from the first day, and I could not get my head out of that. I had also a good friend of mine who was into that, and he unfortunately passed away very early in his life at age 18. And I still remember, you know, him vividly from those moments. And yeah, anyway, that's kind of, you know, where it started and how the love came. I've never been very good in running or anything or swimming so I just started with triathlon and just went for it, and didn't get result, but just was progressing a bit every year, and still hooked on it. But whenever I had the chance to drop the bike, actually, and doing biathlons or aquathlons, I was doing it. And I remember racing those kind of races back in like already 94, 95. And it was like, you know, again, village races on the sea coast, which is not where I'm coming from, but I would go on vacation and there would be those races. And I was just completely in love with just the swimming, and running was very fun. You didn't need much equipment, but it was still very much the triathlon format. So there was a place where you would put your equipment and swim somewhere, then go out, change, put your shoes, and go for a road race, which was still very, very nice. But the first time when I saw those videos about Ödyssey and you know, being in the middle of nature, fronting the ocean, the elements, the bad weather, the cold, having to carry everything with you from A to B, having to, you know, transition I don't know how many times during the course, that was just, to me, so interesting. And also the partner thing, which I had not experienced before starting it, but was kind of appealing to me. I was like, this is new. I mean, this is an endurance sport, but the team thing is just bringing something very special to it, where you will have to help each other, to listen to each other, talk to each other, train with each other, kind of, you know, again, make it happen on not only on race day, but during the training, the preparation for races. So all this made it, you know, super interested. I think that dimension continues to make it very special, and I hope it will continue to be so for the main races, at least. And of course, I understand that's a hurdle for the accessibility to the sports, but I still believe this is something unique and that has to be cherished for the future. I mean, if I sum up, it's basically being in the nature, swimming and running, of course, but doing that with someone. That to me was very special. And since then, I haven't bought a bike. I mean, I'm still only swimming and running, and I commute to work with my bike, but it's not. I watch triathlon, but yeah, it's not appealing to me anymore. I think swimrun is fun, and I will probably continue to do it for some time if the body allows. Yes.
Yeah. Swimrun has a weird way of making sitting on a bike for 5 or 6 hours just slamming watts very unappealing in a straight line. I don't know what it is, but after you do something like you do your first swim run and you're like, yeah, I guess, sitting on the trainer for hours just isn't all that fun. I can be out just going wherever I want in nature and having the time of my life.
I fully agree. And the digital path of endurance training is, I'm getting older. I don't get it. It's not me. I don't think I would have fallen in love back in the days if it had been to be in front of your computer. And, anyone who wants to be serious now in triathlon, I'm not talking about the elite and the professionals, which is another category there. This is their professional life, but even like age groupers and, random people, they need to be in front of their computer during the wintertime. And it's, I don't know. I find it very weird, to be honest.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting way of looking at it. The fact that everything is so digital now, you can be in so control of watts and effort and things like that. And as you mentioned, the pros, they sort of have to do it because it's their livelihood. But sort of the proliferation of Trainer Road and Swift and all these other products to Ruvi, I think it's a new one. It definitely makes the experience different for sure. And I feel like in swimrun, because every race is different, every course is different. You don't have like sprint, Olympic, half, full. It's just whatever it is. And the only way to test yourself on a course is to do it twice to see how well you do year over year. The adventure aspect is just much more present. And I also agree with you that I think Chipper and we're definitely on team. People should race as teams if at all possible, like find a partner, do the race with a friend. And while we both appreciate that, like the solo category is a way of getting people into the sport. Like if you really want to have like this classic swimrun experience, you almost have to do it with a partner.
I fully agree with that. The training though is quite fun. I live on an island close to Stockholm, and it's a blessing to be able to just run from the house dressed like a penguin and just run a couple of kilometers, jump in the water, then decide wherever you want to go, whether you want to go along the coast, whether you want to reach another island. We're in the archipelago of Stockholm in particular. We're living in a swimrun paradise. It's amazing. Wherever you go, it's gonna be a good place for swim running. So what I'm saying is that training solo is fun as well. Of course, it would be nice to always be able to train with your partner, but in reality, we have different lives, and most of us have families or whatever, different constraints. So we're trying to make it happen as much as possible in duo, but the solo training remains the basis for training. And I don't mind, actually. I love training. I can motivate myself as long as I see some races coming up, and then I get excited to find a partner. And this is actually the phase I'm in just now, and discussing with a few people. It's an exciting phase, but there has been some moments where it was actually quite stressing. So I did twice Attila, and both times I was chasing partners overseas on the female side. So I've been really hunting for partners that could be motivated and would have some ambitions that were similar. And it was tough. It was fun, but of course it's a source of stress on top of it. And I was totally unable to train with them. So now getting a bit older and with less ambition potentially, I'm just trying to find a neighbor that will help me out. And there are so many around Stockholm, so it's possible.
Nice.
Yeah, it almost like it makes sense that swimrun was sort of invented in Sweden because, as you mentioned, like it's almost like it's just it's
So
almost
natural.
made for it.
Yeah.
It is. It is on both sides, both sides of Sweden. So you have the archipelago of Stockholm, but also in Gothenburg, where you have also an archipelago. So those two kind of poles have developed quite significantly and in parallel, and you have good athletes and athletes, just taking part on both sides. And then along the coast, you have other small spots as well, because again, you have smaller archipelagos or smaller bits of islands along the coast, both on the west and the east side. Surprisingly, it's the sport is not that popular in Norway. I think a few years ago there were a bit more races there. Of course, COVID came, but I haven't seen a lot of the old races coming back for 22, and hopefully there will be a rebirth there. But there were quite a few Norwegian athletes interested to race in Sweden, and some good ones that have been competing regularly in Sweden.
Nice. Yeah, we've the success of the Gothenburg race speaks to that point as well. I think they had a really successful inaugural season, and definitely looking forward to bringing it back for the second year. Would love to get your kind of take. Chris and I were sort of the mindset about the most diverse swimrun offerings you can make, the better. So you can have the world champs, which is 75Ks, and then now we're starting to see these type of races like the Arc Super Sprint, which is a really short course format. Maybe a 400 swim and a 1K run, and you're doing this kind of circuit style. Where do you kind of see if those are the two ends of the swimrun equation? Where do you kind of see it going in the future with the growth that you've observed from 2015 on?
I think both formats have space in the sport, and I think I guess the more spectacular, the better for the sport. So if we can get formats where you can arrange, some sort of a production team that is able to catch different spots on the race, because the format is so short that you can keep it relatively close to each other. Of course, the purist will say that the spirit is not there anymore because you're not crossing islands. You're going to beaten path, and you're not. The adventure dimension might be a bit lost there, but there is definitely room for that. And I guess a lot of the younger athletes, I'm talking Hugo Tormento, for instance, or some of the others that are coming up. They would love that because they have a lot more juice and a lot more sprint speed in them, and I think they would love doing more of that. What I've been thinking more though is that there should be space also for kids racing a bit more, and I think if each and every race could have like a side race that would be welcoming like youngsters, swimming, 50, 100 meters, and doing a kilometer run, and then maybe repeating that twice, and something similar that to the Iron Kids series that have been, I think, bringing so much to the sport of triathlon. There was very US focused, but still. It brought up so many of the top triathletes, 10, 15 years down the road. And I think, this is probably where I see, the potential for the sport to really grow and sustainably for the future, trying to build some schools and having kids that start sport with swimrun just because it's fun and it's swimming and running and it's, my kids, for instance, they just love to be in the water, even if it's 12 degrees. Yeah. They are used to it, and they love to climb on the rocks, and because it's their playgrounds. where we live, and so I can just imagine, I've never been to Ongalopet, where I think they have kids races. But this is so fun, right? You do that with your parents. They come along with you, and it's a big festival, a big party for everyone, and everyone is a winner, and this kind of spirit. I think that would bring a lot. I mean, again, very much relating to this Ongalopet experience. I raced Ongalopet back in the days, and it was just this nice festival in the middle of the countryside outside Stockholm, and everyone was just going there because this was the place to be in August for those who love the sport. And
right.
And so that would be, I think that's one dimension that I think needs to be promoted. And I've had a word about that to Michael Lemmel, so it's probably at the back of his mind. But of course, now, because of COVID, they are trying to get the business steady again before, launching too many things. But
sure.
But I think it's something to keep in mind.
So speaking of COVID, I mean, we're on Instagram all the time, sending out memes and stuff. And honestly, during COVID, we were just trying to put out content just to try to keep people entertained and sort of engaged. But you were doing the same. I mean, you had a bunch of videos out. You were putting out a ton of content, like the caricatures of the awards. I mean, that was always so great.
Interviews and
So can you tell me a little bit of sort of like what were you thinking during COVID, and how are you feeling about trying to keep everyone kind of into it?
No, that was very much the idea to keep up with the swimrun content, even though there was no races, and lots of people were still training solo or duo or even in small groups and posting their stuffs, which was really great. I don't know, I have this creative side of me that's, whenever I get the chance to put something a bit special, I would do it.
We see it. Then, we see it. Like, it's definitely on display.
Yeah, but so those caricature stuff, it's I've been drawing my entire life, and so I was thinking it could be fun. I'm sure some of the athletes did not find it that fun, but I didn't get too many bad comments. But
no hate mail on that.
No, but it was a fun thing to do, and so that was the way to keep up with the audience, and actually surprisingly out of COVID. So last year, 21 was a crazy year in terms of people getting to the website and clicking, and
great.
And that's, I don't know about you guys, but that's not necessarily reflecting in the likes and the the views, but on the website in particular, it's been going off the roof. So it was really nice to see that people, are into it and, believe that TSR brings something to the table. And I'm not pretending anything. It's just, again, an independent way to look at things, and you can, of course, improve it. The algorithm is not bulletproof. I've had some discussions, especially with some top athletes who, were a bit disappointed not to be like over there when they were just below. And but that's how it is. And I think I'm still confident that the format is still pretty simple, easy to understand, and is a good reflection of where the people are. I mean, and one thing that I would stress also that is very, I think, quite relevant with the ranking is that you don't have to apply or to enter your points yourself. So you're automatically there if you have finished the race, which makes it very inclusive. I mean, you get basically everyone. So that's for me. And again, I don't want to compare with another ranking that everyone knows about. But I'm pretty happy with the result or the outcome of what the ranking is showing today.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always great to have, like we've been talking about. There's so many there's so much room in the sport to help it grow, that anyone who's being overly territorial, like for us, we would love if there was another podcast. Like when people have told us they are starting a podcast, we're like, great, good luck. Let's, the more information you have, the better. And you see some of that with like live sports TV.se, where they were doing some interviews and stuff like that. Because if you're really trying to grow the sport, I mean, you have to inspire people, and you have to know, like, for example, we know Hugo, we've interviewed him. He's an amazing athlete. People need to know that he exists, and that he's also very approachable, and that he's super stoked on swimrun, and he's, probably has a good chance of being on the podium again at the World Championship. And the more you can tell these stories, just like in triathlon, that's what really inspires people to kind of pick up the sport and sort of understand what's possible. Like, so that brings me to kind of like, you do these annual awards. We're cool. It was cool of you to invite us to be part of it this year. We're very excited about that. Tell us a little bit about, how'd you came up with that idea to have this be sort of like an event?
Yeah, so, well, actually, back in the days, there has been a couple of physical events that I did, I think, 18, 19. I did 2 events, so reflecting on the season of 17 and then the season of 18. It was fairly well attended from Stockholm people, but it was physical. So, of course, you had to accommodate people's times and schedules. So, but it was quite nice, and it was arranged in the boutique of Wolfwear, which is which has been supporting the website since the very beginning. So I can only thank Joachim for that. And the idea was to get together, get a drink, and name the best athletes. We managed the other years to have a bit of a prize, kind of equipment prize for them. This year, that's not the case because I believe it's not really relevant, given that those guys have already their sponsors. So I don't think they are here for the money at this stage. I guess everyone would like to see more money there. But it's just, I've never managed to attract cash. So it's, but that was basically the idea, get the people together and just have a, discussion for like, an hour, and then chat with each other, with a glass of bubble. So that's, was the idea. And so this year I was thinking about doing the same, but then thought, let's do it online. I'm sure that there will be people willing to attend and listen live on what's going on. And so there will be, sorry to talk in future because it's coming up. So,
yeah,
there will be a few guest stars, including Nicolas Remire, and then Marika has accepted as well. Marika Wagner, Desiree Andersson both have accepted their first and second on the individual ranking of TSR. And then there would be you guys, and then Lars Finanger. Which, to me, at least from my little eyes from Stockholm, is someone that has been really bringing the sports to the US and doing a lot with, starting with Casco Bay and the Ödyssey series. So very thrilled to have those guys around the table. And again, I hope technically it will work out. I'm not using a professional platform, so let's see. But I have good hopes, and it's going to be fun, and we shouldn't take it too seriously. And I hope to be able also to let the audience ask a couple of questions to the panel. So, awesome. So it's going to be fun.
So, I probably should ask you this at the beginning, but why'd you come up with the name the Salamander Rankings? I should ask that first.
Well, I was looking for an animal that would be amphibian and just would represent swimrun. And so nothing really fancy, to be honest. Made a bit of research. I remember Googling a bit about that. But then I wanted like a catchy name with 3 letters. So TSR is probably what people remember. The Salamander ranking. I remember on one of the first events, that was one of the quiz questions. So I had some sort of a quiz for those attending, and I was asking them, what does TSR mean? And I had put, random stuff. And then, and actually not everyone knew that TSR was for the Salamander ranking. So it doesn't need to be known, I would say. It's something just,
Gotcha.
just there.
I like it. Feel free to fly us out. Next in-person event you have out there, we'll be more than happy to get on a plane and head out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Have some champagne with you all. Awesome. Well, I mean, you're still racing. I see you did Uto, you did a couple other races. What do you have besides locking in, finding a good neighbor to race with this year? What are you looking for in terms of getting out for swim runs?
How shall I put that? And then I'm going to give a bit of myself, but I've been back and forth in the last few years about quitting completely and then or continuing. My body has been putting some, again, stress on myself. I've operated both knees. I've had Achilles tendon problems for many years, which tend to take a few months off every season. So last year it was 6 months without being able to run at all. So that's the reason why I could not do anything but Uto, which I did only one force at no K speed. The three quarter of the race was with the Achilles completely destroyed. So anyway, so I've been going back and forth as to, whether I want still to compete or whether I just, take it easy but it's just part of my life. So whenever I think about something else, I'm just sad and I don't feel well. So it's part of the balance with the family, the job, and the sports. And so I'm going to continue. And so to answer more directly your question, the plan is to do 3 artillery races this year. So Uto, Gothenburg, which I've never done, but planned many years, but again, for injury reasons, could not do that. And Cannes, because I'm French, and my family-in-law, my Swedish family-in-law, they have an apartment in Cannes, almost on the course.
Wow!
On the way up to the peak there, which is Pic de la Garde. So it's just ideal. But again, I've been contemplating doing this race for, 5 years, something like this. I'm almost from the very beginning of Cannes and never managed. So I don't know what to do, whether I should touch wood because it doesn't work. I've tried that before. But that's the plan for this year, and trying to do this with the same partner. Mm-hmm. And then potentially, wish for another big race next year.
Yeah.
So the World Championship. But I have other bucket list races, such as Silly, for instance, which from a pure logistic perspective is probably not realistic, to be honest. I need to leave the family and the job for 4 days. So it's a big thing. But it looks really amazing as a race. I've done Engadin in the past. Wouldn't mind doing it again. And then you have, of course, the Malta, the Croatia. I know Croatia is not existing this year, at least. But all the artillery races are amazing. And then races like Rockman, for instance, are also very much on top of my list. But it's possibly too big of a monument for my body. Not my mind, because I'm ready to do it tomorrow. But I need to think about myself. So
it's like I feel the same way. Like, we want to do all the races. Like, every time we see a new race, we're like, oh, put that one on the bucket list. And basically, we need to spend like a whole summer in Europe to really try to, check a lot of these off the list. But I mean, I think anyone who was paying attention to Swimrun last year and saw any footage from Cannes, like, if you're not putting that race on your list, I mean, it was probably like one of the greatest days for swim run in a long time in terms of just everything about it was just perfect.
Yeah, everything was nice, and they managed also to put the venue. I mean, the finish line on the Martinez Hotel is just amazing. I mean,
Red carpet.
It's just a lot of fun, and it was perfect weather. It can be actually quite tricky in the water at that period of the year. I think last year was definitely okay. But no, it's a great race. It's a city race, however, so it's not extremely technical, and I guess you hit a lot of pavement, and even the trails are kind of beaten trails, but still you have the magic of the Côte d'Azur, and it's a good weekend for everyone just to be there. So
definitely. Definitely.
But what's your new bucket list for this year? What's the deal for you guys?
Well, we had this little thing in September. We got qualified for the World Champs last year, so just really building towards that. We had our first the U.S. season kicked off last weekend at Swimrun Lake James in North Carolina, and we did that one. And then we're doing Casco Bay, which is now in July. Mm-hmm. Then World Champs, and then we have Swimrun North Carolina, which is the final year that they're doing it. And that one's in November. And then maybe we'll see if we can squeeze another one in there, but definitely focusing on World Champs this year, because we're very excited.
Do you have any tips for us?
Tips for you guys. Just take it easy. No, I think the 2 first hours are slightly stressing because they put a cutoff time that is a bit, short on the first 2 hours. I mean, it's manageable, but it's the most stressing cutoff you have. If you can manage this, then the rest should go well. But otherwise, one thing to make sure you have on you is the proper equipment if it's cold. I dropped out of the race because it was too cold in 17. Well, 17 was a weird year. It was a special year. But still, I was not enough properly dressed. And so, putting a second layer of neoprene or something like this, you would regret it for many years if you have to drop out because you're cold. So even if you're too warm at some point of the races, I would still recommend to take it seriously. But it depends on everyone, of course. But
sure,
that's a good tip.
And that advice,
and then eat as much as possible, which is also something I tend to forget to do. So.
That's all very good advice, and we've heard that from multiple people. So it's always helpful, on our journey to have that really sink in. From the more people we hear it from, the more likely that we won't screw it up. So thank you.
No, exactly, and it's very simple advice. There is no. Then I mean, for the technicality of the course, and I think it's. You've never raced in Sweden, but it's not the most technical race that we have here. The first part is a bit technical, but you have to take it easy and try not to fall. There are so many people that are getting injured just because they fall on a rock or something, and it can be bad actually, but it can also just twist your ankle and you're done. Or you break your foot and you finish the race, right?
On the podium.
Yeah, like that too. Yeah,
exactly.
Impressive.
I don't know how that happened, to be honest. It's still puzzling me, but it was very impressive.
That was definitely the performance of the year. I mean, we remember watching the video of that and him coming out like after the pig swim, not looking all that great. And then when we interviewed them a couple weeks after, he basically was like, "Oh yeah, I'd broken my foot," and I was like, "What? You still had to go how many Ks?" It was amazing. It was amazing. Incredible.
Yeah, because it was before the half marathon on Orne, which means that he had to. But apparently, it went better on even soil, like even ground. For him, it was easier to get a rhythm and just get it go. But he's an excellent runner. I mean, that's his background. So
So let's ask you, we've had you on for a while. I have one more question. The sport is really growing. You see it growing in these pockets like Germany, Sweden, but definitely in France. What do you think is it about? Is it just the climate that's suitable or the terrain that's suitable for swimrun or why do you think it's growing so well and prospering so much in France in particular?
I have some ideas about that. I'm not sure they are really, backed by numbers or anything, but triathlon is a big sport in France. It's a very structured sport with a number of leagues, number of huge clubs. The federation has done a great job by segmenting and growing the sport by creating a lot of, again, schools for the kids and the youngers. And so it's so that's a big mass there. And I can assume, if you've been a triathlete for 5-10 years and, you want to try something else, you can switch to swimrun. If you're a triathlete still going for it, but you want to diversify your season or go for something new or try new destinations, you try swimrun. And then, trail running is also huge in France. So you have the trail runners that are coming to the sport and they can manage the swimming because of the equipment. So that's another part. I wouldn't say that swimrunners are coming from swimming that much in France, whereas in Sweden it's a big source of swimrunners. So of course you have counter examples. Hugo is a former swimmer. I mean, the top guys. I'm not really discussing the top guys, but when you look at the mass, I don't think people are coming from open water swimming, which is still a very small sport in France compared to the number of swimmers. France is a pool swimming country, whereas in Sweden, open water swimming has been big much earlier than in France. So I think that's one of the reasons. It's, of course, and there are not a single pole or a single region where it's good to do swimrun in France. You have the Côte d'Azur, but you have also Brittany, which is amazing for that. Mm-hmm. And then the West Coast with more sandy kind of races. So you've got it all, and then you have huge lakes and. So I'm not that surprised by that, but then saying why it's not working that well, for instance, in Spain it's growing as well, but we're seeing it's a bit stagnating. I don't see a lot of new racings coming up. Italy is quite big in swimrun, but they have these different formats with the aquatic racer or aquatic runner races. And then the UK has been growing quite steadily with the Breaka Swimrun, and they're offering like really spectacular races. So again, if I could race 10 races a year, I would probably do 2 or 3 in the UK because they're they are really spectacular if you look at the videos and
some of those races do look amazing. There's more to add to the bucket list, which I think is
how long is this list?
Exactly.
Like a scroll, bucket scroll.
There's no limit to it, right?
Right.
But maybe a question to you guys. I mean, on the US scene, of course, the Ödyssey series has been taking off and is growing, steadily. We've seen also the Ignite races, but I'm not sure it's actually continuing.
Yeah, they went away. Yeah, I think in the US there was some expansion with Ignite. I mean, Ödyssey kind of started it off. Then you saw some other local races pop up. And then I think with COVID and everything, it kind of contracted. So there really aren't that many events. I think there's, probably a dozen that are, that would be considered sort of like big races. And I think it's like, our struggle is we just need more people to learn about it, right? Like try to get more articles and in like Triathlete Magazine and things like that. I think Herbert Crable, who runs Swimrun NC, like with Slow Twitch, like he's been essentially like the chief evangelist of just letting people know that it exists, and I'm talking about Engadin and the European races and things like that. But I mean, we're hopeful that there'll be, I think once we're truly past COVID, that there'll be more races coming online, because I think it's just like triathlon. You have to have your local events that seem less daunting. You know, like if all you have is something like Engadin, or in the US, like Casco Bay and Orcas Island, both those races are really serious and hard. I mean, we love it because they're that way, but it raises the barrier to entry.
Stuff too.
Yeah, it makes it less approachable for your casual sort of weekend warrior type. So more local events, and hopefully, like I said, once we're through with COVID, there'll be more of these popping up.
Yeah.
Now, what's your take on the new on your new stars? You know, because there has always been stars that have been interested in swim running and doing Attila, even back in the days. You know, Pippa Middleton and some other famous people that were taking on, and we're seeing now the Iron Cowboy, and there has been and Rachel was there, and do you think that I mean, people like Simon Whitfield would be great to have on Attila? He's been talking about that forever, but I'm not sure it's going to be reality at some point. But it could be anything from Lance Armstrong or Starikovic has been also lining up for Swimrun last year. I mean, what's your take on that? Do you think that could be the trigger for something bigger in Swimrun, or?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, their first exposure, maybe if you're already in the sort of endurance space, which is probably our highest, conversion rate, so to speak, from like exposure to what Swimrun is to actually doing one. If you're already in the endurance field, I feel like you're more apt to do a Swimrun. So Rich Roll, for example, doing it in 2017 and having the New York Times piece and having a multi-part on his own show that has a much, much broader audience was a lot of people's first kind of intro into what is this thing of Swimrun. And I do believe, I don't know if there's one kind of silver bullet tipping point, so to speak, that, if we just get X celebrity, X, Y, and Z to do it, or this and that. But I do think kind of stacking these celebrities or, more people of note with bigger followings does just help bring more exposure to it. And if it is the Iron Cowboy and that gets him on ESPN or something, and there's 30 seconds of fame for Swimrun, I would imagine we'll probably see some momentum start building from that, and then just sort of stacking those things on each other.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because when we started the show, I mean, we're kind of saying it in jest when we started in 2020, but we also kind of meant it a little bit, that 2020 was going to be the year of Swimrun, with Attila coming to Catalina for the first time. And definitely, like, we were feeling the enthusiasm. A lot of people reaching out, a lot of people signing up for their first Swimrun was Catalina. And then, COVID just put, big damper on all that enthusiasm. And I'm obviously you can never know what would have happened, but I think if it wasn't for COVID, I think we probably would have seen much more interest in Swimrun through that year, because there was a New York Times story about that one. Swimrun coming to America, Attila coming to America. So I think that there could have been some, there probably were some missed opportunities there, but that's the hand that we were dealt. I
agree. And if I look at Sweden, how it had also developed, the year 18 and 19 were just incredible. And I know that also from my partner, so Wolfware, who was selling like crazy in terms of equipment for Swimrun. So it was like just booming, and then the COVID just killed basically something that was really about to blossom. And so I just sincerely hope that it's just adding a delay, but the delay will probably be, it's not going to be just 2 years. It might take another couple of years to get back to where it was. And And I sincerely hope in particular that Attila will fully recover and will be able to offer the range of races, the full range of races, potentially offering even more destinations, because they are still the driving force behind, the sport. Also because of the media they're producing. I've always said to Mikael that the pictures to start with, but then the movies were just really amazing.
Same.
Chris and I were just talking about this. About I was at work and trying to explain somebody the race that I just did, and they're like, "Oh, so you swim and then you run?" I'm like, "No, you keep doing it over and over." And I'm like, "If I could just show you, let me send you this YouTube video, and just like you need to see it to like kind of really understand the totality or the what it is." Or maybe I just can explain it better.
Well, no, I mean, it's like, when we qualified and all my family was like, so what are you doing? I just sent them the YouTube video of just like the course map, which is just kind of the countdown of the Ks. And they just looked at me like I was crazy. But I mean, it's like, I am, like this is a crazy thing that we're going to do. So, I hope that, I think if we just keep doing what we're doing, that the sport will just grow the way it needs to grow. And if that is in a positive way, amazing. If it stays the way it is, that's a bummer. But I think if I could speak for everybody here, is sport's amazing. When people do it and discover it, they fall in love with it and they want to help it grow. So I think the more people continue to feel that way, the sport's going to be just fine.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the main thing about swimrun, it's a different sport. It's unique. It's not to be compared to triathlon or running or swimming. There's something different, and I guess when you try it once, even if it's just a training session, you will feel something different in your the way you experience it, and so it's and to me that's the main driver for it to survive and to grow. That you make it's a special sport, and you have so many triathletes that are trying swimrun and saying, "Oh, guys, this was just a blast and nothing compared to what I had been doing before," even though they have been doing 10 years of triathlon everywhere. So the adventure part of it is important. So getting back to your question. The smaller formats will be spectacular and will draw attention, but I think we should keep the spirit of the more epic. Full nature epic adventures, which can be a bit shorter. You don't need to be. I mean, if you do 10K with let's say 8K running and 2K swimming, or even a bit less of swimming, anywhere here in the archipelago, it's going to be an adventure for most people, and it's going to take you, let's say, 2 hours or something, which is already in itself quite a long thing. But
I think if you look at like the final 15, right, like that's been a super popular event for Attila, and it's just very approachable. You're on the course, you're in sort of.
But it's very special in itself. It's already
totally.
like when you finish this one, you can say, "I've done something special, right? Look on the map what I did."
Totally, 100%. 100%.
Absolutely. Well, I don't think you could have framed it up any better for us, so we'll just shut it down after that. You did such a great job, but thank you so much for all the work you're doing with TSR. I mean, your passion and love for swimrun is super obvious and shared across multiple giant bodies of water and continents of land between the low tide boars and you. So really appreciate it. Thanks again for having us on the TSR Awards. And then we're looking forward to doing the TSR Awards as well.
Exactly.
Haven't quite locked it down. But thank you so much for your time and chatting with us.
No, thanks to you guys. And again, thank you for what you're doing. I didn't say it, but you're doing a great job as well. And I know the work you can represent but it's all about passion. And so if you have that, I think you will do great in the future. So thank you again for
awesome. Thanks,
for inviting me.
Appreciate you.
Yeah. All right. Have a good one, man. Really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye. Well, that's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a review, since that's the best way to help other people discover the show and the sport of swim run.
Sign up for our newsletter at lowtideboys.com. That's boys with a Z. And check out our meme page at the Low Tide Boys on Instagram. If you have any suggestions for the show or questions for us, send us a DM or an email at lowtideboys@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Riding Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of all our swim run activities, podcast, and other stuff.
Yeah, other stuff.
Other
Way
stuff.
Way to keep it PG. Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim,
Go for a run,
then another swim,
then another run,
and then another swim.
and then another run.
And then just keep going until you're done.
So you're done. Or maybe can't
And then
stop.
stop.